You're listening to Procurement 6, the weekly podcast from the team at Art of Procurement that summarizes this week in procurement in just 6 short segments.
Hi there. My name is Kelly Barner, and today is Friday, October 4th, 2024.
6.
This week's tip is inspired by last week's episode of Art of Supply, which was all about digital empathy. Sometimes empathy is as much about what someone perceives as it is what we intend to signal, so being aware of those cues is important. Something I had not thought of as empathy while researching the episode is response time. If you email someone back right away, it suggests to them that you care about their issue or question. It communicates empathy. Now that said, when someone doesn't or can't email back right away, we shouldn't understand that to mean that they don't care. In fact, it may just be an opportunity to practice empathy for them in return.
5.
In this week's Art of Procurement podcast, Philip Eidson and I spoke with Shachi Rai Gupta, Vice President of Strategy at Oro Labs, and Martin Ward, Digital Procurement Transformation at Roche. The focus of the conversation was the results of our recent study on the factors influencing procurement orchestration. In this clip, Shachi talks about innovation as one of the outcomes enabled by orchestration, but she also points out how procurement's misguided views about innovation can sometimes lead them down the wrong path. Let's listen.
I think it's a disconnect too. I think sometimes people just have a very inflated idea of innovation. They're like, oh my God, we have to save we're right now, things are going down, like we're losing, money, like why, let's focus on innovation when it's a good day. But you almost have to, like what Martin said, correlate that. What are my enterprise goals? So it always comes like, what are they really striving for or struggling towards? And how procurement as a nested group within that, enabling that for them. Because I think that's the other thing. Your procurements, because I've done so many procurement strategy, vision and roadmaps, etc. It always starts with what the enterprise goals are. And then how are you sort of facilitating that, of course? And how are you also then obviously, growing and evolving as a function? But when sometimes I've seen that they don't go hand in hand, you're like sort of almost on your own path and the enterprise is on a different path. So I think that innovation tends to be misperceived as, it can only be done when I'm in a, good place and all. But I think innovation fuels some of the urgent goals and requirements that an enterprise, like speed, I keep saying that, speed, visibility, and some of those things are table stakes, like the visibility and transparency thing, which you would think is but basic. It's not. Like people don't have visibility into a lot of the existing data. They're not able to leverage it. People went and shopped for so many systems, and all due respect to a lot of our procurement technology sort of landscape.
To listen to the full episode, go to artofprocurement.com/podcast or search for Art of Procurement and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also click the direct link in today's show notes.
4.
The cost of labor drives a number of business decisions, not the least of which is where products and materials are sourced and assembled. When supply chain teams evaluate their options, the right answer is often elusive, and it won't be the same for everyone. Leading companies are often those who are willing to experiment, not just with the different forms of X-shoring, such as reshoring, nearshoring, and friendshoring, but also with the balance between human skills and automation. In this week's Art of Supply interview, I spoke with Thomas Goldsby, the Dee and Jimmy Haslam Chair of Logistics at the Haslam College of Business at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, about this exact balance. Thomas and I discussed companies like Nike and Adidas who are evaluating fully automated domestic production, as well as companies like New Balance and LL Bean who offer premium-priced domestic production for a subset of their goods. More important than the path chosen, however, are the willingness to make an effort and the ability to learn fast before committing and investing more broadly. Listen to this week's episode of Art of Supply for more.
This is Procurement 6 from Art of Procurement. To get notified every time an episode is published, go to artofprocurement.com/subscribe. 3.
I can't be on the mic for the Procurement 6 this week and not talk about the strike shutting down all of the major East Coast and Gulf ports in the United States. The International Longshoremen's Association went on strike promptly at midnight on September 30th. This strike is expected to have a major impact, not just on domestic supply chains, but on consumers as well. Here are a few of the key numbers you will want to know. For every day the ports are closed, it will take 4 to 5 days to get them back up and running once the sides can reach an agreement. The economic impact has been estimated between $4 and $5 billion per day that the strike goes on. The U.S. Maritime Alliance, the group negotiating with the union, has offered 50% pay raises over 6 years, but the union is holding out for 77%, considerably higher than the West Coast dock workers accepted in their last contract renegotiation. Beyond pay, a key sticking point is the encroachment of automation on jobs. An automated gate was found operating at one of the unionized ports, and that is what led to the breakdown in talks that brought us to where we are today. I will be covering the strike in next week's Art of Supply, but until then, watch the headlines and stock up on bananas if they are an important part of your diet.
2.
In this week's episode of the Sourcing Hero podcast, I had the opportunity to speak with James Lowry, an advisor at Boston Consulting Group and the OG of minority-owned business programs. One of the most compelling ideas he shared in our conversation is about what good looks like. It is a much bigger picture than I've heard described in most conversations about supplier diversity and well worth a listen. According to James, good isn't minority-owned businesses being invited to RFPs. It isn't even minority-owned businesses winning RFPs. Success will only be realized when minority-owned businesses are able to grow because of their partnerships with larger entities in the public and private sectors. Listen into this week's episode of the Sourcing Hero podcast for a balance of inspiration and insight from James Lowry using the link in today's show notes or wherever you find your podcast audio.
1.
Before I let you go, I want to share some details about one of the many sessions we will be running at this year's Mastermind Live, a virtual event that will take place on October 30th. Because there are as many right approaches to procurement as there are companies in the world, each team has to stay focused on what their organization needs, not allowing themselves to become distracted by overly generalized best practices or peer pressure. We will be hosting a panel session with Lorelei Clark, Director of Procurement Operations at Petco, Kyle Rosenthal, Senior Director of Strategic Procurement at Hearst, and Pierre Lepre, Chief Product Officer at Spend HQ. They will speak about the unique characteristics of their procurement organizations and how they take steps to ensure each decision supports the way they work rather than begrudgingly adopting the best practices of others. Register for the entire event by using the link in today's show notes or by going to artofprocurement.com/calendar to see a list of all upcoming AOP events.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday at 6 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. If you've enjoyed this pod, help us grow and tell your peers to search for Procurement 6 wherever they get their podcasts.